are down. Biotechnology has been successfully implemented. The new era has begun. Systems operating properly. Gate number 6 is being opened. All the weapons are locked and loaded. Dystopia 2077 is starting now. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Get ready.
Hello my fellow Frosties, you guys know how much I love the music, so we had to let this one play obviously at the start. So I wanted to do a different type of video this time. I had a lot of feedback of people wanting commentary through the videos, my general thoughts going pack by pack, and any tips and tricks. And obviously I'm only doing these for you guys, so I take note of everything you say. And yeah, we're going to do this video a little bit different, where I'm going to do a little bit of commentary over it. So starting off with, I really wanted to keep the comms in this video. However, where I got a new microphone and a new mixer for the stream, the sound volumes for my recordings decided to play up and change all of the settings. So while I am loud in the recording, everyone else is very quiet. So for anyone who is quite experienced editing videos, I had to set the gain to 30. Gains should not be above 0 generally. And when I set it to 30, you could hear my keyboard, which is just obnoxious. Anyway, I'm chatting away about irrelevant nonsense. But yes, that's why the comms aren't in this video, but I'm here doing commentary anyway. So the first part of the dungeon obviously we shrouded, because the one thing with Plaguefall is these plague borers and the canisters. As you can see here, they basically kill all of the trash for you. So that's the good thing about Plaguefall, is that, well, you don't really need to do much. So what you'll see is we CC'd one plague borer, and we took the other one and we used that plague borer to kill this pack. And then you'll see we'll go back to the CC'd plague borer and we will take that one into the rest of the trash. And we basically alternate the plague borers and the explosive canisters littered around to kill the trash for us for this whole segment. So I will shut up, as there's not really much else to say from me. But you can watch and sit back and watch this bit, and I'll let the music play and we'll come back again. Just before that though, I think it's worth mentioning that the plague borers will explode at about 30% health. So you'll see that we actually take the plague borer, DPS it down, and then bring in the trash that we want to kill with it. This is because you don't need to tank the mobs longer than you have to. The tank can save defensives and resources, same as the healer. So you DPS the plague borer down till it's about to explode, then bring in the trash, and yeah, you can save a lot of mana and defensives. And you don't need to tank the mobs longer than you have to. So what you'll see in a minute is that we pull the boss right after this, and we don't take the second plague belcher that's patrolling around the back. If you do this route, which is pretty common, you'll have to be careful that you don't pull it or anyone pulls it, because obviously that's very bad. So yeah, as for Plague Stomp, you can auto time it like you'll see I do now. It's really good because it recovers some health, which obviously helps the healer out, but it also gets you straight back into position on your rune to do some damage. And if you tank the boss here, it makes it very easy to dodge the slime wave. You can just go through the boss. It saves a lot of movement. I know a lot of tanks love kiting this guy, like yeeting it across the room, but it does make it a lot harder in the long run. So, you know, the first ad comes out, you CC it, and then you just pull the boss very little bit to the right, as you can see. Again, you don't need to take this boss, yeeting it across the room and all of that. It makes it very easy to dodge the slime wave when it's just kept into position like this. As you can see, I'm knocked into the middle now, but it's fine because I have Blink. But everyone else is kind of just around the outside of the boss, and they can just go through the boss to dodge the slime wave. They don't have to go far. And you can actually ignore the small ads if you have enough CC. And obviously if you don't have enough CC, you just kill them. It doesn't really matter too much. Yeah, and you just keep moving the boss a tiny bit around the room. And yeah, just full nuke. Obviously CC the other big ad that comes if you have to. And yeah, bish bash bosh. So this whole segment is again killed with Plaguefall and the canisters, so you can just watch this for yourself. This whole segment plays itself with all of the explosions, but again there's not much for me to say. You can just see how we pull and how we use the Plaguefall yourself, so I will be quiet and let this play.
See me with it.
Okay, as for the bit coming up, this is actually quite a cool part of the dungeon. So the mini boss, which spawns the guys that run around with the bomb timer above their head, you'll know the ones when I come to it in a minute. You can use these bombers to your advantage. So if you get arranged to pull the, as a side note, I have no idea what happened here. For some reason they aggroed to me and I just melded and we just carried on with the shroud. But anyway, as you see here, arranged can tag the bombers that run. You can see them running now. So arranged can tag them, bring them in, and you can kill again this other segment with these Plaguefall, including the pride that will spawn. So you'll watch this segment play, you'll see that I spell steal to just tag the mobs to make sure they come, because obviously they won't run towards you on their own. Someone does need to pull them. And a safe spell like spell steal, not just throwing an ice lance, because obviously they could. The tentacles are quite scary to pull sometimes. So yeah, you don't want aggro though, so you need to be able to pull them and pull them to your tank really, and your tank to take them, which my tank does. Obviously my tank's great. But yeah, you just have to be a bit careful with aggro, which I wasn't very careful. So like I said, you'll see I pull in the Plaguefall spell steal. The tank goes and pulls the mobs that we're going to kill. So you want both, so I'm a bit risky here taking a hit. So you'll see, the tank goes to pull the packs, we kill them with the bombs, and this segment once again plays itself. It's quite cheating really. Oh, just quickly, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but the big ad will spawn these tiny slimes when it dies, and these must be soaked or CC'd, because if they finish their cast, they will turn into bigger versions of slimes with more HP, and obviously this will take a chunk of time off of your run, so you don't really want to be spending time killing them when they have evolved, shall we say. So you want to soak them, like I said, but they do a lot of damage, especially on high keys. I think you've seen my tank soak some, maybe 2, and take a chunk of damage, so you have to be careful. You can see just now that you can see the mobs get pushed into the explosion, so obviously if you have this in your class you should be doing this. I'm not sure what it is, Z, Y, X axis, all of the axes are a little bit tricky on these elevated platforms. The bombs actually didn't hit these mobs for some reason, even though they were in that. So we just get the next lot of Plaguefall and explode them again. And then Pride spawns, and you'll see that we use the bombers to kill the Pride as well. And you can actually use the canisters on the floor as well to kill the Pride. We don't. We just use the bombers, but you can use that canister. See the yellow nameplate over there? You can use that. That will work on the Pride as well. So yeah, you can do that too. So just to reiterate with those slimes, make sure you're CCing them to stun them or CC them out of their cast so that they don't turn into a big slime, or run over them to soak them, but just be really careful doing this. Like I said, on high keys that'll probably one-shot most people, just one of them. If you're a druid you can bare form soak, things like that are okay. So yeah, as you can see, we just kill all of the trash with these bombers, and it's just so quick. As a side note, I don't think I actually noticed when I did this key, but can we all just appreciate the Steve macro? Sorry. So irrelevant. Alright, bye again. Okay, for the bit coming up, it's definitely worth noting that you would usually invis past the mini boss. This is because you can kill all of the boss room trash with the same Plaguefall if you keep him alive. And the only reason we didn't do this is because we shrouded just before. So we didn't have shroud here, and I don't think anyone was ready for an invis skip, aka didn't have invis pots and stuff, and we would have lost more time trying to skip, because this is something a lot of people need to bear in mind, that sometimes skips can cost you more time than it saves. So you need to make the decision of, is this actually going to save time, or is this going to mess up and cause, say, deaths or any kind of penalties, or cause more aggravation? Because if it is, it's just not worth skipping. So when we do Plaguefall again, obviously you won't see because it's a completely different route. We actually did shroud past him rather than shrouding the other pack, which we used the canisters to kill. Not to confuse you, but I'm just saying that you can actually invis past the mini boss, because obviously once you kill him, the bombs stop spawning, so you can kill this whole area with those bombs as well. The invis skip is a little bit tricky because you have to jump over the water and not get obviously the dot on you that comes from the water that will then take you out of stealth, so you do have to be careful with that. So like I said, we're doing a 22, we didn't do that, so if it's going to cost you more time than it's going to save, you don't need to bother. You can just kill this trash, it's absolutely fine. You save so much time from the canisters and the bombs in general that, you know, you can afford to kill the mini boss if you have to.
Going back to you. Back to you. Back to you. Back to you. To ya, to ya, to ya, back to ya. I had to stop going back to ya. To ya, back to ya, I had to stop going back to ya, to ya, to ya, back to ya, I had to stop going back to ya, to ya, to ya, back to ya, I had to stop going back to ya.
So for this boss, I can comment on some Frostmage things in particular. It's kind of hard to know what to comment on in these kinds of videos. I don't know whether to comment on the actual tactics of the boss from the basics, or just to go through more advanced tips and tricks along the way. So if you have any preferences of what you look for or what you find useful, please let me know down in the comments, just so that I know what I should be commenting on, what doesn't really need to be commented on, and things like that. So obviously, let's talk from the basics. The important parts of this boss are killing these canisters. The boss will phase 66% health and 33% health, I believe, and it will jump to a platform and spawn these canisters, and you have to DPS and kill these canisters before the explosion happens, otherwise it's pretty much a wipe. So we here are on the first one, and obviously arrange DPS cooldowns if you need to, but you shouldn't need to really, it should just die. The other noteworthy thing is the purple slime, which you can see is rooted in the back. So you should be able to do this amongst yourselves, push the slime out, or make the tank take the slime out. As you'll see in this platform, when the slime spawns, our tank with the nipple mark takes the slime out, and then the rogue blinds, I believe, if I remember correctly. Let's just have a look. Yeah, see, so the tank takes it out, rogue blinds. But the CC actually got broken, which does happen, to reiterate. This is quite tricky to do because you have a lot of things like boomies, you know, that's going to hit every target with, I can't remember spells specifically, but they do have abilities that they can't really control, that will just hit whatever. So CC will get broken, so bear this in mind. And deal with it really. So if the CCs get broken or you're struggling, as long as you keep this slime away from the canister needs to be killed ASAP, DPS down. So the tank just keeps the purple slime on the boss, far away from the canister. You kill the canister and then kill the purple slime, because it causes anything around it to take less damage. So you need to focus the purple slime, as there's no point focusing anything else. Kill the slime and then focus the boss again. So I'm glad that you got to see it both ways. You got to see it correctly CC'd, which if you're able to do it, saves a lot of time. But if the CC breaks, you just handle it as well, like you saw we do as well. So either way. So approaching this pack, I actually hadn't seen this done before. I did it in this run, but our tank pulls this one slime, and as you can see, CC's the tentacle in the back, see it's feared. And then he pulls two mobs from the middle onto the tentacle, we'll kill them together, and then we go onto the middle platform. This could be just because there's a lot of priority targets and priority stuns that need to be interrupted on various mobs in the middle platform. So, you know, the defender will cast a shield on anyone around it inside the circle, they take less damage. So if you pull him onto here, you only have to focus interrupting the one cast rather than all of the different casts from all of the mobs. So that could be a way, which again saves time because then it's not going off and everything's taking less damage. One thing about the tentacles though is it will cast Crushing Embrace, I believe it's called, which means it picks someone in melee, I believe. I'm not sure if it's a random target in melee or whoever's closest or what, but it will cast it on someone. This is a priority cast to be interrupted. It needs to be stunned out of it, or actually any mage who's running Ring of Frost will break this cast and prevent it from casting. And what else? Yeah, just stuns. generally. See, this is my lack of knowledge of other classes coming in. But yeah, if you know you have a stun, or if you're a mage, you have Ring of Frost, it will break this, because that is a very difficult cast. As in, it's very healer intensive. You take a lot of damage, and as it's avoidable because you can just stun it out of this cast, I'm sure the healer would appreciate not having to waste defensives or mana having to heal something that's completely avoidable. So your healer will thank you, and obviously the person won't die. Okay, so approaching these packs, there's quite a lot to note, really. We obviously CC the Inspired because these mobs have a lot of things that rogues especially will want to stun, to interrupt, and obviously any class that can do that. So a lot of people love interrupting this enveloping webbing here, but with the ambusher you shouldn't, because all it does is root you and there is nothing to move from. You can be happily rooted in there and be absolutely fine. And the reason why you don't interrupt that cast is it's because then it stops the ambusher from casting its other abilities, which are way more scary. It can ambush someone, which means they take a chunk of health. It can cast the Stealthlings, which obviously takes a lot of attention away from DPS in the pack, because you have to stun those little spiderlings out of the cast. Otherwise they can one-shot someone if they've got bad RNG and they all jump to the same person, and this can happen on low keys as well. The defender can obviously cast the shield, which makes everything take less damage around it, so you can interrupt that instead. So yeah, you can just leave the ambusher casting this enveloping web, and then it won't be doing anything else, which is more harmful to the group. Other than that, you kind of control, make sure the defender doesn't cast, obviously, just don't leave it casting, otherwise you're just never going to kill the pack. Make sure you get the spiderlings out. Door of Shadows works on the spiderlings to stun them out of the cast. There's me getting hit by a tornado. Bad mage. This is why I'm called trash on details. But yeah, the notable thing, you can leave that mob cast enveloping web. Side note, this song's quite fitting. It's definitely talking about these annoying tornadoes. Literally one of the worst affixes. They definitely are a murderer. I'm not sure if I've spoken about it yet, but generally on Prides, if you're struggling with where to stand, obviously the person with the, what would you call them, Red Balls? Well, the person with that ability should always stay still and everyone else dodge them. Like, it takes you a sidestep to dodge that person, and it saves the other person trying to dodge the 4 other people. So obviously if you have it, always stay still, but you can line it up. So if you see, we don't quite get it, but you can see we could just line up in a line here, and no one would ever hit each other, because, you know, we're just one in front of the other and it's going out at those diagonal ways. So if you can, try and look for where that line would be. Obviously it can go 2 ways. We could line, you know, vertically or horizontally, but just try and line up as a group and be close together, and obviously don't move if you have it. I know we was commenting on the macro earlier, but this was actually really hard to see the swells on the floor with the macro. I mean, obviously it's worth it every time and I should just get good, but it was really hard to see the tornadoes here. The Steve macro, obviously. Oh, just quickly as well, like you'll see in a minute, Shadow Ambush, which is the circle, as you can see, the little purple circle that fears anyone around it, caught in it. It actually trucks, like you see our druid just died, I think it was on around 90% HP and he died outright. Even on Fortified, this ability does truck, especially on Tyrannical. You always want to pop a defensive for it. Don't underestimate it, it hurts a lot. As we're approaching the final room of the dungeon, the final trash packs, I think it's really important to talk about it because I don't think a lot of people, not necessarily don't know how it works, but I see a lot of people just pulling these mobs one by one, or sometimes they pull all of them and they're not quite sure why. So if you are in a week where the affixes don't interfere with the pull as much, aka it's not bolstering or sanguine or anything like that, you can just pull them all at once. It's for DPS efficiency, it's just much quicker to kill them all together like this, you know, big AoE, rather than one pack at a time. It saves a lot of time. If there are affixes that interfere with it, you can make a case to jump on the water on the left or right side. Don't engage the mini boss until you've killed off the 2 packs in the back, and then obviously go to the front pack. This allows you to easier pre-position the mini boss for pride killing or skipping, because obviously when this mini boss dies, the boss spawns. So if he's the last one alive, you can, as you can see, we drag him over here and make it easier for positioning the pride. Now, we do in fact go and get the slimes after this, so pride won't spawn, but a lot of the time people take slimes first and then do this whole room. So if you're doing it that way round, you can position the pride. If you need to skip the pride with invis pots, you can pre-position the pride and be far enough away to invis skip it. But also, you're not spawning on pride on top of the boss when it spawns and just causing yourself a headache and most likely a wipe. Okay, I say most likely, definitely a wipe. So the reason we do it this way around is because if you have a Necro Lord, they gain buffs from these slimes when they die, and we would rather have these buffs for the pride and the boss than the trash room. So the trash room, it doesn't need much. It's not very healer intensive, it's not very tank intensive if the tank is kiting correctly and, you know, holding aggro and all of that. So instead we get a buff for the pride. Pride's always very healing intensive, but also we get the buffs for the boss, which is much more useful. The boss is very healing intensive with Infectious Rain, so usually the healer would have to heal this intensive pride, because obviously you want to save cooldowns for the boss because you need to phase the boss quickly so you don't have as many Infectious Rains. So there's not going to be many cooldowns going out on this pride. So it's a very healing intensive pride in general. So if you have the boss buffs for the pride, the healer has to spend less healing cooldowns and can save them for Infectious Rain and the boss in general. DPS can save cooldowns as well for the boss to phase the boss quicker. And it's just all round better. Like I said, you don't really need it for the trash room at all. So it's much more useful on the pride and the boss. So speaking of this boss, it's incredibly important that you as a group coordinate DPS cooldowns. You don't want everyone to pop everything in the same phase. This is because the boss is going to phase at a certain percentage of health anyway, and each phase is a DPS check. If you all blow everything in the same phase, you're not going to have anything for the other phases. And the reason why it's a DPS check is because of Infectious Rain. Infectious Rain completely trucks the entire group. It's very healing intensive, and you want as least of these as possible. It becomes unhealable. You can't blame the healer. You only want 1 at a push 2 of these infectious rains in a phase. So coordinate your DPS cooldowns. Make sure you've got something for every single phase. As you can see, we have Pride for the first phase, and we actually hero phase 2, like you'll see now. This is because in phase 3, Infectious Rain has a longer cooldown, which means the boss casts it less often in phase 3. So phase 2 is more of a DPS check, so we hero phase 2. It's also worth noting as well that these slimes shouldn't really be taken for granted because they really need to die. Sure, they all die from passive cleave, but there are times when, depending on your DPS, they stay alive a little bit longer than they're supposed to. Now, you don't want multiple of these adds because the tank has to soak the circle that they spawn. If the soak is missed, then it's pretty much a wipe. So you don't want more than one of these adds, more than one soak. The tank can't get all of them. This is what happened in Plaguefall 21 I did a few months ago. We couldn't soak all of the swells, so it was a group wipe and the key was dead. So save yourself the hassle. If you see that ad living much longer than it should and it's not dying quite as much to the passive cleave, just put some DPS on it. It's fine to do that. So as you'll see now, this first Infectious Rain, there are no tentacle spawns. So I'm safe to auto time that whole cast. As you saw, I regained a lot of health, which helped the healer out a ton. So a lot of people are afraid to use auto time, but if you use it for this first cast, you're safe, there's no tentacles. As for ice blocks and other defensives, you can coordinate this with your healer. Just discuss when are healing intensive moments, when's best to block off the debuff so they don't have to heal it, and coordinate things like that. But yeah, other than that, GG. I hope you enjoyed this video. So let me know down in the comments if you enjoyed this style. It's quite new for me. I feel like I've said quite a lot. Sorry about that. Okay, bye.